Well, happy Friday to you. It's Geospatial-Next time. I have been working hard over the last few weeks, so I've been a little delayed in getting this next video out. I wanted to cover today some of the stuff we're going to be talking about moving forward. I kind of introduced it until the last video, but let's title this one The Road to Geospatial-Next, and let's dive in. Good, so let's dive into the journey, how we got here. Thought it'd be good just to provide a little bit of context of how we have, and particularly I have, arrived at this Geospatial-Next place. So let's begin at the beginning. And what I've actually started to call GIS Next. So back in 1996 or so was when the web made its appearance. And I was living, I live in Utah, and Utah was a place where we actually had access to the ARPANET, as it was called then. So the University of Utah was one of those nodes on that network. So I got early access to the internet, which was amazing. And I saw GIS and the web around the mid-90s. So about 1996 was when that, what I want to call the GIS Next journey began, certainly for me, from moving from desktop to the web. That was when ArcObjects IMS came out. That was where some open source technologies were also available. So that kind of started the journey, I think, into the next phase of what was GIS then, from desktop to web. The next phase happened around 2008 when the first, wasn't so much the first iPhone came out, but when the first iPad came out. And that was actually, so my reaction to the 1996 phase was actually to become a developer. So I started writing web applications, wrote a web, my graduate degree was actually a web GIS application, which was pretty interesting. The journey into mobile was about 2008. Where, again, I think for GIS that meant really the larger screens, which was the iPad. My journey into that place was setting up web map solutions and building a mobile development, GIS development company. So it was an interesting phase and an interesting journey, and one that I've kind of lived through. That kind of takes us to Geospatial-Next, really. And I think that journey started around about 2018. And that was really driven by technology revolutions that we'll talk about in a minute. So I kind of see this journey we've gone on from 1996 to 2018 and to today is from web to mobile to what I'm calling, and I'm struggling to come up with a term there, but I'm calling it revolution, because I think the phase we're at now is a more difficult phase, but one that offers incredible opportunities, more than just an evolution, which I kind of saw web and mobile. Okay. Jolly good. So again, I've gone through what Geospatial-Next many times, but I wanted to go through it one more time. Actually, this won't be the last time. I learn more each time I move forward. Each role I have, each position I fill, I learn more about this journey. And my whole focus has been for a number of years, really around the whole notion of Geospatial-Next. So what is it? I would say GIS, and you saw me just talking about GIS Next. GIS was an important part of the early part of that journey, and GIS is a really important part of the geospatial world. GIS is a central focus. GIS is about maps primarily. GIS is also about deep-seated analytics as well, geospatial analytics. So really two core parts to it. So GIS fills a place in the geospatial world. It is not all of it, it is a part of it. Now, there's another group of tools, technologies, experts that sit in what I call the expert tools area. Now, I would have put GIS into that category a few years ago, but not so much now. GIS has become a much broader technology. It's still expert based, but I certainly wouldn't put it under the expert tools world. The expert tools world is really very specific. It's things like the CAD world. It's things like processing remote sensing data. It's expert tools, mostly desktop centric, leveraging geospatial data, might be satellite imagery, it might be from drones, it might be LiDAR, but it's experts who are processing that data, maybe doing analytics on that data using very specialized expert desktop mostly tools. So that's a second category. There's a third category, which I call digital reality, but it's really where that whole world of 3D and digital twin comes in. And you'll see a lot of organizations that are appearing now, particularly in that space. A lot have been in that space. It's really that traditional world where I would say architecture, engineering, those sort of folks that are used to working in that sort of 3D world, and others, that's kind of where that leans towards. But it's its own specialty, it's its own area. And even though it has crossovers into the other areas, one can still put that into its own category. At least in my sense, you can. A fourth group, and this is kind of the guys that I've spoken to quite a bit in the Geospatial-Next conversation. This is really some of there's older solutions there, but there's a bunch of new solutions. These new startups in the geospatial space are producing very focused solutions. These are very focused workflows. It might be around vegetation management for utilities. There's a whole plethora of organizations that have appeared, which are providing very specific, and they can often be just point solutions, which are driving towards very specific outcomes. So I look at those guys in isolation in some ways. They're certainly not part of many of them wouldn't even use the word geospatial maybe to describe what they do, but they're all fundamentally working with geospatial or location-based data. I'm going to add one more category to this, and that's business intelligence. I tentatively put that in here. It's different to the rest. It's a visualization tool focused used by experts and non-experts alike who are business people. The GIS world and some of the other focus areas have looked at BI and reacted to that. They worried that softwares like Tableau started introducing maps and some sort of high-level analytics to their tool sets. So I still see tenuously or tentatively, I put BI there, but I believe it's still part of our sort of bigger universe. So I kind of put all those five groups as under the sort of geospatial banner, if you like. And what kind of underpins a lot of this stuff, and where currently this sort of new revolution is first of all around the new data we're getting. Do you like that animation? I was mucking around with that earlier. So we've got new data, we've got new sensors, we're now collecting all sorts of data, a tsunami of data as I've often called it, that we haven't had before. That's really part of the Geospatial-Next conversation. And then on top of that is the ability, which is still very early, regardless of what you hear and people say, artificial intelligence, machine learning are still new to the game, but they offer amazing possibilities to automate processes, to help us drive down to a place where we can kind of make decisions. So that's our universe. I'm going to call this a dramatic change of focus, because I've often said that I believe our geospatial world is very much focused on technology and data and the value of those things. So that's where I've seen the conversation. And again, I see GIS as talking about maps. Undoubtedly, maps have value. But it's very much that sort of deeper level conversation that we've often had. One of our challenges is to get out of that place and really to start talking about having business value conversations. And that's kind of where I see the Geospatial-Next world growing and becoming important. And I see that as the key part of Geospatial-Next. It's just not a technology conversation, a data conversation. Primarily, it's a business value conversation. So what that means in reality is, and again, this is what we'll dive into in more depth over time, is I believe that we can get new perspectives out of geospatial, and that helps us improve decision making, and that leads to better business outcomes. So those underlying terms are really the cornerstones of, I believe, Geospatial-Next. So this is where the conversation is going to go to. My sense is, and I've always had this, my sort of why, if you like, Simon Sinek's definition of why, my personal why within the geospatial world is, how do we take all of these separated groups, tenuously linked, loosely connected in some places, pieces, and get something out of that. So it is less about a specific conversation, be it GIS, be it 3D digital reality, more about bringing that together and providing folks with new insight. So I think that's really where I'm going to be taking this conversation to, through interviews, through different means. Again, new perspectives lead to better business outcomes. It's less about one, it's more about the collective. And my role is now really focused around this area. I mean, purposefully. I've worked in the geospatial field for my career. My leaning is always towards Geospatial-Next. I've had folks come to me to say, how do we get to Geospatial-Next? And there is a journey, and it's something that I've been defining and understanding and improving how we have the journey to get there over time. So that'll be part of this conversation. But ultimately, we're going to start from the top, which is the business outcomes, and drill down into the technology in this conversation. So I look forward to more. Again, I'll try and be more regular on Fridays to do these talks, and we'll drive deeper into this this exciting geospatial world. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us on the Geospatial-Next channel. We're focused here on understanding the future of geospatial. That's both how we get to mainstream adoption of the technology and data, and how we start using blockchain and crypto to move things forward. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.